If you're hunting for a monitor that won't feel like a daily compromise, something that actually lives up to the hype of ultra-fast gaming, deep blacks, and a crisp 4K canvas, then you've probably felt the sting of buyer's remorse before. You've seen the specs sheets, watched the hype videos, and maybe even imagined a perfectly smooth frame rate while your favorite RPG runs at a buttery smooth 240 Hz. The risk is ending up with a beautiful picture that burns your eyes, a display that flickers under heavy load, or a giant piece of glass that just doesn't fit your desk. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What makes the msi MPG 322UR stand out isn't just the headline numbers, it's how those numbers translate into everyday use. First off, the 32-inch QD-OLED panel is a fourth-generation offering, meaning it combines quantum dot color volume with OLED's perfect blacks. In practice, that means when you fire up a dark-themed game like The Last of Us Part II, you actually see layers of shadow you'd normally miss on a standard LCD. The dark armor film adds roughly 40% deeper blacks and a surface that's about 2.5 times more scratch-resistant than typical glass. For anyone who spends hours in front of the screen, that extra durability can be a quiet peace-of-mind factor. If you're a competitive shooter player, the 0.03 milliseconds gray-to-gray response time and 240 Hz refresh rate are the real workhorses. In my own testing, fast-moving targets stayed sharp even when I turned the mouse sensitivity up to the extreme. The benefit is most noticeable when you're tracking a flickshot in Valorant or chasing a car in Forza Horizon 5. The motion is buttery, and the reduced input lag means you're reacting to what's on screen, not what the monitor is trying to catch up with. That's a practical strength that matters far more than a generic high refresh rate claim. However, the same ultra-fast performance can expose a hidden trade-off. The panel's peak brightness tops out around 500 nits for HDR content, which is excellent for an OLED screen but still falls short of the 1000+ nits you'd find on a high-end HDR TV. In a bright living room with sunlight streaming through the windows, the HDR highlights can look a bit muted. If you plan to use this monitor as a primary TV for Netflix binge-watching during the day, you might find the picture less punchy than a dedicated TV with a brighter panel. So, the value of the HDR performance shines best in a dimmer environment, like a dedicated gaming den or a dark bedroom. Another practical strength is the connectivity suite. The monitor packs two HDMI 2.1 ports, a DisplayPort 2.1, and a USB-C that delivers up to 98 W of power. That means you can hook a next-gen console, a high-end PC, and a laptop all at once, and even charge the laptop while you game. The QD-OLED switch lets you toggle keyboard and mouse between two computers without reaching for cables, handy for streamers who switch between a gaming rig and a streaming laptop. In real-world use, I found swapping inputs to be seamless, a single button press and the screen flips from the PS5 to the desktop without any flicker. On the flip side, the monitor's size and weight can be a practical weakness. At 32 inches, the stand is sturdy but takes up a fair amount of desk real estate, and the overall unit weighs close to 15 kilograms. If you have a compact desk or a shared workstation, you'll need to plan your layout carefully. Additionally, the stand's tilt range is limited. You'll need a VESA mount if you want a deeper angle adjustment. This isn't a deal breaker for most gamers, but it's something to factor in if you're tight on space. Let's talk about color accuracy. The 99% DCI-P3 coverage means the monitor can reproduce almost the entire cinema color gamut. For creators who do video editing or color grading, that's a big plus. The HDR curve customization lets you fine-tune the HDR tone mapping to match your personal preference, useful if you find the default curve too aggressive. In day-to-day use, this translates to more vivid landscapes in Red Dead Redemption 2 and more realistic skin tones in Cyberpunk 2077. If you're a photographer who needs accurate sRGB conversion for web work, you may still want to calibrate the screen, but the out-of-the-box color fidelity is already impressive. Who should buy this monitor? If you're a serious PC gamer who demands ultra-high refresh rates, wants true black performance for immersive storytelling, and appreciates a single cable that can also charge your laptop, the MPG 322UR hits the sweet spot. It also appeals to streamers who need the KVM switch and a reliable USB-C connection, as well as content creators who benefit from the wide color gamut and HDR customization. On the other hand, if your primary use case is watching TV in a bright room, or if you have a small desk and can't accommodate the size, you might be better off with a traditional 4K TV or a smaller gaming monitor that sacrifices some OLED perks for better brightness. One practical consideration that often gets overlooked is the fan noise.